In 7.2, we're going to factor trinomials, which means that we're going to do the opposite of FOIL. And there's going to be a few different ways that they're going to look, so I'm going to do them one at a time. The first format is if you have x squared plus bx plus c. In this section, you're never going, in section 7.2, you're not going to have a number in front of the x squared term. If you do, then you can factor it out so that you don't have one. But just the general format, if you have x squared plus bx, and b can be any number, and then plus c, and c can be any number. Here, it's important that there's a plus and a plus. So you're going to have x plus something times x plus something. And this is what, if you, with these two numbers, if you were to do FOIL, you would get whatever is here. Now what these two squares are, the sum of them equals b, and the product of them equals c. So this times this equals c, this plus this equals b. So an example here would be x squared plus 12x plus 20. So one way that we can do these is find all of the factors that exist for 20. And you're always going to start with 1. So it's going to be 1 times 20. Then you're going to see if 2 works, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. And then you're going to keep going until you catch up to yourself. And I'll show you what I mean by catching up to yourself. So all the factors that exist are 1 times 20. And write them like this. The first number times the second. And then try 2. 2 times 10. 3. 3 won't go into 20, but 4 times 5. And now we're up to 5. If we were to keep going, we would just have 5, and then 6 wouldn't work. So this is what I mean by catch up. So once you get to the either numbers that are exactly the same, or numbers that are really close to each other, and you won't have any more that will multiply. So now, these are the three choices that we have. So we're going to have x plus and x plus, and it's either going to be x plus 1 and x plus 20, or x plus 2 and x plus 10, or x plus 4 and x plus 5. But remember, they have to add up. The sum is equal to b, and here b is 12. So the two here that add up to 12 are 2 and 10. So our answer here is x plus 2 times x plus 10. You don't need to put a time sign in between. You could also write this x plus 10, x plus 2. It doesn't matter what order you put those in. So the next one that I'm going to do is if b is a negative number. So that's going to be x squared minus bx plus c. So if this is the case where this sign is minus and this is a plus, then you're going to have x minus something times x minus something. They're both going to be minus signs. So for example, if we have x squared minus 23x plus 22. Okay, so all of our choices for 22 are 1 and 22, 2 and 11, 3 won't work, 4 won't, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The next one that will work is 11, and we already have 11 here, so these are our only two choices. And we need to add up to 23, so the two that do that are 1 and 22. So we're going to have x minus 1, x minus 22, or x minus 22, x minus 1. Those are going to be your answers. Alright, so let's do another one here. Let's say we have x squared minus 27x plus 50. So the first thing I'm going to do, we know that we have a minus and then a plus, so we're going to have x minus and x minus. And our choices for 50 are 1 times 50, 2 times 25, 3 won't work, 4 won't work, but 5 times 10, 6, 7, 8, and 9, none of those will work. So these are our three choices, and the ones that will add up to 27 are 2 and 25. So our answer is either going to be x minus 2 times x minus 25, or x minus 25 times x minus 2. On all of these where the c is a plus, both signs are going to be the same as each other, and they're going to be whatever b is, and it doesn't matter what order you put these in. So now we're going to see what happens if c is negative. So now, instead of adding to get to b, it's going to be, we're going to have an x plus something and an x minus something. So now we're going to have one plus and one minus. The product is still going to equal c, but now the difference equals b. So now the two numbers that we have that multiply to get c, we have to subtract them to get to be our b number. So we would have something like x squared plus bx minus c, or x squared minus bx minus c. And whatever sign the b is, that's going to be your bigger number. So the bigger factor has the same sign as b. All right, so some examples of this are going to be x squared plus 3x minus 10. Now on this one, one way that you can do it to keep yourself straight, put your x's in, and then whatever sign this is, put it on the first one, and the opposite sign on this one. And so now your bigger number is going to go here, your smaller number is going to go here. So our choices for 10 are 1 times 10, 2 times 5, 3 doesn't work, 4 doesn't work, and 5 we already have. So we need to subtract to get to 3. 10 minus 1 equals 9, 5 minus 2 equals 3. So we're going to put 5 and 2. Now for these kind of questions, if you don't know, if you forget what sign that you're supposed to put, just do FOIL. So I'm going to do FOIL on here, and if I get the exact same answer, then I'm going to be right. And then I'm going to show what happens if I put x minus 5, x plus 2. So x times x, x squared, x times negative 2 is minus 2x, 5 times x is plus 5x, 5 times negative 2 will be minus 10. Combine like terms, x squared plus 3x minus 10. And that's what I started with. On this one, where all I did was have the signs wrong, I have first is x times x, so x squared, outer, x times 2, so plus 2x, inner, negative 5 times x is minus 5x, last, negative 5 times 2, minus 10. Combine the like terms, x squared minus 3x minus 10. Now note, I have a minus here, but I started with a plus. But everything else of these two is the same. So if you do this and you check yourself, which I do recommend that you do, and the only thing that you have wrong is this sign, on your answer, just change the order of the plus and the minus, and you'll have it right. So another one here, let's say that we have x squared minus Oops. Let me rewrite this one. X squared minus 5x minus 36. So I'm going to have an x and an x. Because this is a minus sign, I'm going to put minus here. That means it's a plus here. So all of our choices for 36 of factors. We have 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, 5 won't work, but 6 times 6 will. And see here, I caught up 6 and 6, so we can stop here. Now we have to subtract to get to 5. The ones here that will subtract to get to 5 are 9 and 4. So I'm going to put 9 and 4. And because I put my sign that was here in the original with the B on the first one, and I put my larger number here, that means I know that I'm correct. Okay, so let's say though that we have something like x squared plus 6x plus 15. Okay, so we have a plus and a plus, so that means we'd have an x plus and an x plus. Our factors of 15, because this one is a plus, have to add up to 6. Our choices are 1 and 15. 2 won't work. 3 times 5. And then we have 4 won't work, and now we're at 5. Neither of these add up to 6. So that means that this is a prime polynomial. What that means is that we can't get anything where whole numbers are here. In the next class, you'll learn how to do these where you'll get some fractions. But in this class, you're not going to ever have fractions on this. Okay, so let's say that we have x squared plus 9xy plus 14y squared. Okay, so now we have x squared and y squared here, and this is xy. So first off, before I do anything with those, notice I have 2 pluses, so this is going to be x plus and x plus. And because we have a y squared here, we're also going to have a y at the end of each of our binomials. And because these are both pluses, that means my factors of 14 have to add up to 9. So my choices are 1 and 14, 2 and 7, and none other exist. So the ones that add up to 9 are 2 and 7. And this is how we'll do ones that have y's. If they have an y squared here, this middle term has to be xy, like that. Okay, then let's say that we have x to the 4 plus 8x squared plus 12. Okay, so when you have x to the 4 and x squared like this, we have to always have an even number for this exponent. The second exponent has to be exactly 1/2 of whatever this one is. And the square root of that is just 1/2 of that. So this is going to be x squared and x squared. Since these are both pluses, these are both pluses. And my choices for 12 are 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. And we need to add up to 8, so we're going to use the 2 and the 6. Okay, so let's say that you get something like this. 5x to the 5 minus 25x to the 4 minus 30x to the 3. Okay, so now we don't have just an x squared term, and this is an odd number. So what we have to do is factor out everything that we can. So we're going to factor out, as far as numbers go, a 5 will go into everything. And we're going to use the smallest of the exponents, so it's x to the 3. And when we do that, 5x to the 5 divided by 5x to the 3 is x squared, minus 25x to the 4 divided by 5x to the 3 is 5x, minus 30x to the 3 divided by 5x to the 3 is 6. Okay, so we need to keep this part of it because that is one of the factors. And now we can factor the trinomial. We see that we have a minus and a minus. Since this is a minus, the second one, we're going to have one of each, and the bigger number that we get is going to be a minus. So we're going to put minus and plus. Our choices for 6 are 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Since this c is minus, we have to subtract to get to 5, so we're going to use the 6 and the 1. So our answer here is 5x to the 3 times, in parentheses, x minus 6, and then times, in parentheses, x plus 1. Make sure you leave this 5x to the 3 because that is part of the answer. The next one I'm going to do is 7x squared minus 7x minus 42. So I can factor out a 7, and I'm going to get x squared minus x minus 6. So 7, we're going to have an x and an x. Because I have a minus sign here, I'm going to have 1 plus and 1 minus. And the bigger number is going to be minus because this is a minus. And I have to, my two factors of 6 have to subtract to get to 1. So my choices, 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So I'm going to use the 3 and the 2. So 7 times x minus 3 times x plus 2. Again, make sure you keep that 7 in there. Next, let's say we have 2x to the 3 plus 2x squared y minus 12xy squared. So I can factor out a 2 of all these, and as far as the letters go, there's no y in the first term, so I can't do anything with the y's. But I have an x to the 3, x squared, and just x. So I can factor out the x. So 2x. And I'm left with x squared plus xy minus 6y squared. 2x to the 3 divided by 2x is x squared. 2x squared y divided by 2x. We can divide the 2's. X squared divided by x is just x, and we keep the y. And here, x divided by x is just going to be 1. So we just have 6y to the 6y squared. So we keep the 2x. And we know that we're going to have an x and an x. Because we have a y squared, we're going to have a y and a y at the end of the binomials. And then I have a minus, so I'm going to have to subtract to get to a 1. And the bigger number is going to be a plus. The smaller number is going to be a minus. My choices for 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. So since I'm subtracting, I need to use the 3 and the 2. Because 3 minus 2 equals 1. Okay, then let's say we have x to the 7 plus 3x to the 6 minus 40x to the 5. So I have x's in all of them, and I can divide everything by the x to the 5. Note that on all of these, whatever the exponent for the x on the last term, that's what you're going to be dividing everything by. So we keep the x to the 5. We have x squared plus 3x minus 40. We keep the x to the 5 still. We're going to have an x and an x. We have a minus sign here, so that means we're going to have 1 plus and 1 minus. The bigger number is going to be the plus, so I'm going to put plus minus. And we have to, our factors of 40 have to subtract to get to 3. So my choices are 1 times 40, 2 times 20, 3 doesn't work, 4 times 10, 5 times 8, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work, and now I've caught up to the 8 here. So these are all my choices. The ones that will subtract to get to 3 are 8 and 5. And this will be the answer. X to the 5 times x plus 8 times x minus 5.